Harvey.
Good afternoon. How's everyone today? I am Harold Michael Harvey. I grew up in Macon, Georgia, and I'm here today with my lovely wife, Cynthia. And my very good friend, James Spence, is one of the most outstanding lawyers that you'll ever come across in the metropolitan Atlanta area. And although my book is subtitled Essays on the American Jury System, it is not a book written for lawyers. It is really written in layman's terms. And I do have a Juris Doctorate degree, so I have some understanding of the law. And although I do not currently practice law, at one time I did. And I have some practical experience in selecting juries. This book came about because in 2009, well, first of all, let me tell you about the book. I'm going to tell you what my neighbor, civil rights activist, C.T. Vivian, says about justice in the round. C.T. Vivian says, Brother Harvey, my neighbor, has a unique storytelling ability. In these essays, he gently nudges America to see herself from the constitutional 3/5 of a human vantage point. I believe there is no better garret or oral written historical storyteller in this century living in America today than Harold Michael Harvey. I don't know if his description of me as a storyteller is right, but he is correct when he says that justice in the round is an attempt to nudge America to see justice from the eyes of a person of color. There are, I believe, 8 or 9 lawyers who have books at the festival this year. And although I am not a practicing lawyer, I would tell you that the difference between their works and mine is that theirs is full of legalese, and mine breaks down this jury system in layman's terms. In probably 1988 or 1989, I tried my first murder case in the courthouse over here. And in that trial, I had a difficulty. I lacked the courage and lacked the know-how of how to ask white people if they were prejudiced, if they harbored any subconscious racial biases against people of color. Because one day in 1988, my client and 3 of his friends woke up in the morning with the bright idea that they were going to go out and rob a Wells Fargo truck. And in the course of robbing that truck, the Wells Fargo driver shot and killed one of the people who was robbing him, and as a result of that, my client was charged with felony murder. And I did, I thought, the best job that I could have done for him. But I know that I lacked the ability to get a jury for this young man who could understand him, because there was a peculiar situation involving him. He actually had been told by the group that they were going to go over to Walmart. And as a result of going over to Walmart, someone was going to go in and buy something, and then they were going to go take a trip somewhere else. Well, he didn't know that his buddy was going to go and rob the Wells Fargo driver. And so he's sitting in the car. The buddy comes back after the robbery was botched and says, "Take off, drive, drive, drive," and so he does. And so now he's caught up. And he is convicted on the theory, the legal theory of a participant, a party to the crime. I think, 20 some odd years later, I think that had I had the ability to get people to understand that sometimes people of color may be telling the truth about their involvement in their situation. What inspired this particular work was the Trayvon Martin jury verdict. I covered the Trayvon Martin and the Michael Dunn trial for AllVoices.com, an online magazine that published out of San Francisco. And as a result of covering those two trials, I could not understand how the jury came to the conclusions that they reached. And so I pondered that. The first essay in the book is aptly called The Opening Statement. And in the opening statement, I am laying out the case for justice in the round. I'm laying out the case for why we need to rethink our judicial system as it relates to communities of color in this country. And in laying out that case, I learned some things. And so I know that if I had the knowledge that I have today, that young man's life would have been different. Lo and behold, 2 years ago, my wife and I needed some painting to be done around the house. And we hired a painter. And the guy knocked on the door, came to the door to paint the house. And he said, "Mr. Harvey, you don't remember who I am, do you?" And I said, "Young man, I do now." And he called me back to the remembrance of the young man who I defended up here. And he served his time, and he's probably, I believe, has been out of jail for about 2 years. So Justice in the Round tackled these issues. Sometime around 1999, I learned the questions to ask. And I developed a story from my experience playing baseball in college at Tuskegee Institute. My wife is giving me the wrap-up signal, but I'm going to try to very quickly get to the story because it's very important to how we can select jurors. And that is, we were playing Savannah State College, and Savannah State had one white player on the team. And I was on first base, and the ball's hit into the gap in left center, and I take off and run, and we have a big lead, maybe like 8 runs, and I don't want to hustle. And so I get to second base, and I'm hoping the coach is going to give me the sign to hold up, but he doesn't. He just, "Come on over here, Harvey, come on over here." So I kick it in the gear, and I get over to second base, over to third base, and I get to third base. I'm getting ready to pull up again, because I don't want to hustle. He just hot up there in that Alabama sun. But he's saying, "You better get in there and score." So now I really got to turn up. I feel the ball beaming down the back of my head. I get to home plate, and cloud desk. I slide. The umpire calls me safe. I don't know that he calls me safe. I'm on the back side of the plate because I did one of those Jackie Robinson fadeaway slide in the home. And so, as a result of that, the catcher then walks towards me. So I picked him up and I threw him down. Umpire calls me safe. He doesn't chastise me for dropping the catcher. I get to the first step of the dugout, and a person I had grown up, a teammate I had grown up with, had attended high school with, met me on the first step of the dugout and said, "Boy, you are a racist." And so I sat there, and I had to come to grips with that, because there's only one reason I dumped that guy, because he was the only white person on the field. And I knew no one was going to chastise me about it. I also knew I wasn't raised to be that way. And that taught me that other people are not raised to be that way, but we have these subconscious things that sometimes come out in the heat of battle. So I started telling jurors that question. And in the year 2000, my wife and I went up to Calhoun County to pick a jury. And I told that story. We had to voir dire 1,200 people. And we took 12 at a time. And I told that story over and over again. And here I go, I'm wrapping up. And at the end of that story, when we took a break, the bailiff and the court officials wanted to know, was I safe or was I out? And that was the question, guys. We left the courthouse that day. And as we were driving back towards Atlanta, Georgia, I turned to my wife and said, "We got them listening. At least they want to know if I was safe or if I was out." By Wednesday, after telling that story, the judge then, at the end of the day, asked the lawyers to stay, and everybody got out of the courtroom. He says to me, "Mr. Harvey, on Monday morning, Deputy so-and-so told me on Monday morning when he was coming into the courthouse, juror number so-and-so wanted to know, what did he think about that nigger, that nigger lawyer from Atlanta? And I want to know what you want me to do about it. So we then struck him off the record. And so on the way back to Atlanta, halfway home, I tell my wife, we won that trial. She goes, what do you mean we won that trial? We haven't picked the jury yet. I said, what was wrong with what the juror said on Monday, what was wrong about it on Wednesday was wrong on Monday. But until that guy understood that story and had me to stand up and acknowledge that I had harbored some ill feelings towards someone because I had the power to do it, it sensitized him to that situation. So what I try to do in Justice in the Ground is to sort of give America an opportunity to look at race and justice from the eyes of members of the community of color. I appreciate your attention for listening to me. I'll be over at the signing table. I hope you get my book, and I'd love to hear from you guys. Take care.
The author's signing table, the sign off of the tree. Thank you.
Get me with my lord. This is